A millionaire decides to test his fiancée's love by pretending he's lost everything. But her reaction isn't what he expected. It's devastating. This emotional story of love, loyalty, and heartbreak reveals the true value of relationships and will leave you questioning what matters most. What would you do if someone you love decided to test your loyalty without you knowing? For Alex Kingston, a millionaire who built his empire brick by brick, love wasn't just a feeling, it was a risk. His wealth had always been a double-edged sword. On one hand, it offered comfort and freedom. On the other, it invited insincerity, drawing people to him for what he had, rather than who he was. Emma Carter seemed different. She didn't seem captivated by the allure of luxury or the trappings of wealth. She was a kindergarten teacher, a woman who found joy in the smallest things, like reading stories to children or tending to her modest balcony garden. Alex was enamored by her warmth and simplicity, yet his mind refused to let go of the nagging doubts. What if Emma loved him because of his wealth, not despite it? This wasn't just about money, it was about his deepest insecurities. Alex had seen it before. Friends, business partners, even fleeting relationships. People who left the moment they realized his wallet wouldn't always be open for them. He couldn't let himself fall into that trap again, especially with Emma. So he made a decision that would shape their future in ways neither of them could predict. He would hide his wealth, strip away all signs of his success, and present himself as an ordinary man struggling to make ends meet. He believed it was the only way to know if Emma's love was genuine. But tests of the heart are dangerous. They can reveal truths you're not ready to face. And for Alex, the results of his test would break him in ways he never anticipated. Would Emma pass this secret trial of love and loyalty? Or would Alex's worst fears come true? Little did he know, the outcome of this test would not only redefine their relationship, but would also force him to confront the very essence of love, trust, and his own insecurities. The plan was simple in theory but intricate in execution. Alex meticulously dismantled the outward signs of his wealth, one layer at a time. His sleek sports cars were swapped for an old, slightly rusted sedan. He moved out of his lavish penthouse and into a modest apartment on the less glamorous side of town. Designer suits were replaced with simple jeans and button-down shirts from a discount store. Even his usual haunts, upscale restaurants and exclusive clubs, were abandoned for neighborhood diners and coffee shops. The transition wasn't easy for Alex. He was stepping out of the world he'd built for himself, exposing vulnerabilities he had long shielded with his wealth, but he believed it was necessary. He needed Emma to fall in love with Alex, the man, not Alex, the millionaire. The first time Emma visited his new apartment, her reaction was unreadable. She stepped inside, her eyes scanning the sparse furniture and peeling wallpaper. "It's cozy," she said, her smile hesitant but warm. Alex watched her closely, searching for signs of discomfort or judgment. But if she felt either, she didn't show it. He began fabricating stories about his financial situation, explaining that a failed business venture had left him in debt and he was starting over from scratch. Emma listened intently, her eyes filled with concern. "That must be so stressful for you," she said, reaching out to hold his hand. "But I believe in you, Alex. You'll get through this." Her words comforted him, but they also added another layer of complexity to his deception. The more Emma showed her unwavering support, the deeper Alex sank into the guilt of misleading her. Their dates became simpler, revolving around walks in the park or home-cooked meals instead of extravagant evenings out. Emma didn't seem to mind. She laughed just as easily, held his hand just as tightly, and looked at him with the same warmth and affection. But as weeks turned into months, subtle cracks began to appear. Emma, while supportive, started to ask questions that Alex struggled to answer without revealing the truth. "Why don't you reach out to your old business contacts for help?" she asked one evening over a modest dinner. "Surely someone could give you a loan or a job." Alex stumbled over his response, deflecting the question with vague statements about wanting to be independent and rebuild on his own. Emma nodded, but the flicker of doubt in her eyes didn't go unnoticed. The weight of his deception grew heavier each day. He knew he was gambling with their relationship, but he couldn't stop now, not when he was so close to knowing the truth. What Alex didn't realize was that Emma was quietly grappling with her own doubts, torn between her love for him and the strange inconsistencies she was beginning to notice. Would Emma continue to stand by him as his story unraveled? Or would the cracks in Alex's carefully constructed test prove too wide to mend? As the weeks wore on, Alex began to notice subtle but telling changes in Emma's demeanor. While she still smiled and laughed at his jokes, there was a flicker of something beneath the surface, a quiet tension that hadn't been there before. Her questions, once gentle and understanding, grew more pointed. One evening, as they shared takeout in his modest apartment, Emma set down her fork and looked at him with a seriousness that caught him off guard. "Alex," she began, her voice steady but cautious, "I've been thinking about your situation. Are you sure there's nothing more we can do? No one we can turn to?" Alex felt his pulse quicken. He forced a smile, trying to maintain his facade. "I appreciate your concern, Emma, but this is something I need to handle on my own. I've made mistakes, and it's my responsibility to fix them." Emma nodded slowly, her eyes searching his face as if trying to decipher something unsaid. "I just want to make sure you're not shutting me out. We're a team, Alex. I want to help." Her words stirred something in him, a mix of gratitude and guilt. He knew she genuinely cared, but her increasing insistence made him wonder how much longer he could keep up the charade. A few days later, Emma suggested they visit her parents for dinner. "They've been asking about you," she said, her tone light but her eyes probing, "and I think it would be good for them to see how we're doing." Alex hesitated. The thought of facing Emma's parents under the guise of his fabricated financial struggle was daunting. What if they saw through him? What if they questioned why a man with so much potential was struggling to make ends meet? "I'm not sure if now is the best time," he replied, his voice carefully measured. "I don't want to give them the wrong impression." Emma frowned, her brow furrowing. "What impression would that be, Alex? They know you're going through a tough time. They're not going to judge you for it." Her response stung, not because it was harsh, but because it highlighted the trust she had in him, a trust he was actively betraying. "I just think it's better to wait until I'm back on my feet," he said finally, avoiding her gaze. Emma didn't push the matter, but the conversation left a lingering unease between them. The turning point came when Emma, out of the blue, suggested that they take a break from their usual routine. "Let's go somewhere, just the two of us," she said, her tone almost pleading. "A weekend away might do us both some good." Alex hesitated, his mind racing. A trip would mean expenses he couldn't justify within the context of his fabricated story. "I don't think I can swing that right now," he said, carefully choosing his words. "With everything going on, I need to focus on saving every penny." Emma's expression shifted, her disappointment evident despite her efforts to hide it. "It doesn't have to be extravagant," she said softly. "I just feel like we need some time together, away from all this." For the first time, Alex saw a crack in Emma's resolve, a flicker of frustration that she quickly masked. It was a moment that both unsettled and saddened him. He realized that his test was beginning to take a toll on her. The question was, how much longer could she endure before the weight of his deception broke something that couldn't be repaired? As the days turned into weeks, the weight of Alex's supposed financial struggles began to seep into every aspect of their relationship. Emma, once full of optimism and unwavering support, started showing signs of strain. She still loved Alex deeply, but the challenges of their situation were beginning to test her resilience. One evening, Emma came home from work visibly exhausted. Her usual bright demeanor was overshadowed by a deep weariness. She placed her bag on the kitchen counter and sighed heavily. "Long day?" Alex asked, trying to inject some levity into the conversation. She nodded, forcing a smile. "Long week, actually. Things at the office have been overwhelming, and I've been picking up extra shifts to help cover, well, everything." Alex felt a pang of guilt. He knew Emma had started working longer hours, and while she framed it as a temporary solution, he could see the toll it was taking on her. "You don't have to do that, you know," he said, his voice gentle. Emma shook her head. "I want to, Alex. We're in this together, right?" Her words were meant to reassure him, but they only deepened his internal conflict. Each sacrifice she made, every effort to keep their lives afloat, was a reminder of the emotional and physical cost of his experiment. A few nights later, Emma sat down at the dining table with a stack of papers, bills, pay stubs, and a detailed budget she had painstakingly prepared. "I've been thinking," she began, looking up at Alex. "Maybe we should move into a smaller place, something more affordable." Alex's stomach tightened. The apartment they shared wasn't luxurious, but it had become a symbol of their life together. a place filled with memories of late-night talks, shared dreams, and quiet moments of comfort. "I don't think that's necessary," he said cautiously. Emma tilted her head, her brow furrowing. "Alex, I'm just trying to be practical. If we downsize, we can save more, and you won't have to feel so pressured." He struggled to find the right words, his mind racing. "I appreciate that, Emma, but I don't want to uproot everything we've built here. This is our home." Her expression softened, but there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "I just want to make things easier for you. For us." Their conversations, once filled with plans for the future, had become centered on survival. The playful banter that had defined their relationship was replaced by discussions about cutting costs, finding second jobs, and stretching every dollar. Emma's growing struggles weren't just financial. Alex began noticing subtle changes in her mood. She seemed more withdrawn, her laughter less frequent. The spark that had drawn him to her was still there, but it flickered faintly, as if threatened by the weight of their challenges. One weekend, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Emma suddenly turned to Alex. "Do you ever wonder if we're strong enough for this?" The question caught him off guard. He paused the movie and looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I love you, Alex, more than anything. But sometimes, I wonder if love is enough, if we're equipped to handle everything life throws at us." Alex felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to reassure her, to tell her that everything would be okay, but he was trapped by the constraints of his test. "I think we are," he said finally, his voice steady. "I believe in us." Emma nodded, but her expression remained pensive. "I want to believe that too," she said softly. As Alex watched her that night, he realized just how much he was asking of her. Not just her support, but her trust, her faith, and her endurance. He began to question the morality of his test. Was it fair to put the person he loved most through this kind of trial? Emma's struggles were not just her own. They were a reflection of the strain their relationship was under. Each passing day brought them closer to a breaking point, and Alex knew that the outcome of his test would determine whether their love could withstand the pressure or shatter under its weight. As their financial situation grew more precarious, Emma's dedication to Alex became the foundation of their relationship. Despite her exhaustion and the sacrifices she was making, she remained steadfast in her love and commitment. Yet her resilience was tested daily. One chilly morning, Emma woke up before sunrise to prepare for her second job at a nearby cafe. She tiptoed around the apartment, careful not to wake Alex, who was still asleep on the couch. He had been staying up late, endlessly searching for jobs and trying to come up with ways to contribute. She didn't begrudge him the rest. She knew he was trying in his own way. As she tied her apron in the cafe's cramped back room, Emma caught her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were tired, her face slightly pale. She sighed, brushing a stray hair from her forehead. "It's just for now," she whispered to herself. "We'll get through this." Her day was long, filled with impatient customers and the incessant clatter of espresso machines. But when she caught a break, she would glance at her phone, checking for messages from Alex. Even the smallest note from him, a simple, "How's it going?" or "Miss you," was enough to lift her spirits. That evening, Emma returned home with a bag of groceries she had carefully selected to stretch their budget. Alex met her at the door, offering to take the bag. "You didn't have to go shopping after work," he said, guilt lacing his voice. "It's no big deal," Emma replied, brushing off his concern. "Besides, I got everything on sale. Look, this whole bag cost less than $20. Alex watched as she unpacked the groceries, marveling at how resourceful she had become. He felt a mix of admiration and guilt. She was carrying so much weight on her shoulders, yet she never complained or lashed out. Later that night, as they sat together at the small dining table eating a simple dinner of pasta and canned vegetables, Emma brought up an idea she had been mulling over. "You know," she began, twirling her fork, "I was thinking we could sell some of the things we don't use anymore. Clothes, old electronics, even some of the furniture." Alex frowned. "Emma, we don't have much to begin with. Are you sure that's necessary?" She nodded earnestly. "It's not about having things, Alex. It's about making sure we're okay. I don't mind giving up a few comforts if it means we have a little more breathing room." Her selflessness struck him like a bolt of lightning. He realized that she wasn't just making sacrifices for the sake of survival. She was doing it for him, for them. She believed in their future, even when it seemed uncertain. One weekend, Emma suggested they volunteer at a local food drive. "It'll be good for us," she said, her eyes bright despite her weariness. Sometimes, when things feel overwhelming, helping others puts it all into perspective. Alex hesitated. He wasn't sure how he felt about spending their limited free time on something that wouldn't directly benefit them. But he agreed, and by the end of the day, he found himself moved by the experience. As they walked home from the food drive, Emma spoke softly. "You know, I think it's important to remember that no matter how tough things get, there's always someone out there who has it harder. If we can be kind and help even a little, it makes a difference." Her words stayed with Alex. Emma's unwavering dedication wasn't just about their relationship, it was a reflection of her character. She was the type of person who would always find a way to make the best of any situation, who would give her all, even when she had little to give. But Alex couldn't ignore the toll it was taking on her. One night, as Emma fell asleep on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder, he studied her face. The faint lines of worry etched into her features, the dark circles under her eyes. They were all signs of her quiet struggle. In that moment, Alex felt a surge of resolve. He promised himself that he wouldn't let her carry the burden alone for much longer. Emma's unwavering dedication deserved to be met with the same level of commitment, and he vowed to make things right no matter the cost. As the days turned into weeks, Alex found himself increasingly consumed by guilt. Watching Emma give everything she had to support their life together was both inspiring and agonizing. Her unwavering love and sacrifice stood in stark contrast to his own hidden wealth and the charade he was perpetuating. One evening, Alex sat alone in the dimly lit living room, staring at his laptop. The screen glowed with emails from his business associates, updates on profits, new ventures, and reminders of his immense fortune. He closed the laptop with a frustrated sigh, running his hands through his hair. The weight of his deception was becoming unbearable. Emma entered the room, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Hey," she said softly, carrying 2 mugs of tea. She handed him one and sat beside him. "You've been quiet tonight. Is everything okay?" Alex forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired, I guess." Emma studied him for a moment, her brow furrowing. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" He nodded, avoiding her gaze. "Of course." But deep down, Alex knew he couldn't. Not yet. The fear of losing her trust was paralyzing. What if she saw his test as a betrayal? What if she couldn't forgive him for making her struggle unnecessarily? The next day, Alex decided to take on odd jobs to ease the burden on Emma. He found work at a nearby warehouse unloading heavy shipments. The physical labor was grueling, but he welcomed it. It felt like penance for the lie he was living. Each evening he returned home, sore and exhausted, but the sight of Emma waiting for him with a warm meal made it all worthwhile. "You didn't have to do this," he said one night, looking at the neatly set table. Emma shrugged, her smile gentle. "Of course I did. You're working so hard, Alex. It's the least I can do." Her words only deepened his guilt. She didn't know that his hard work was a choice, not a necessity. He was playing the part of a struggling partner, but Emma was living it. One afternoon, while on a break at the warehouse, Alex received a call from his financial advisor. "Mr. Sinclair, just a reminder about the upcoming board meeting. Are you planning to attend?" Alex hesitated, glancing around at his surroundings. The stark contrast between his hidden life as a millionaire and the reality he was pretending to live was overwhelming. "No," he replied curtly. "I'm taking some time off." "Very well," the advisor said, though his tone was puzzled. "Let us know if anything changes." After the call, Alex leaned against a stack of crates, his head in his hands. How long could he keep this up? How long could he watch Emma sacrifice her dreams for a life she didn't even have to endure? The turning point came one evening when Alex overheard Emma on the phone with her sister. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her voice low but steady. "I know it's hard right now, but Alex is trying his best. And I love him no matter what. We'll figure it out." Alex felt his chest tighten. Emma's unconditional support, even when she thought he had nothing, was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. She believed in him without question, trusted him implicitly, and here he was, betraying that trust every single day. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Alex couldn't sleep. He turned to Emma, watching her peaceful expression as she drifted off. She looked so content, despite everything they were going through. He wanted to tell her the truth, to lift the burden of the lie that was suffocating him. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, he resolved to end the test soon. He would find a way to reveal the truth and make it up to her. Emma deserved so much more than what he was giving her. She deserved honesty, security, and a life free from the struggles she had been facing. But with each passing day, Alex's growing guilt gnawed at him, a constant reminder that the longer he waited, the more damage he might be doing to the one person he loved more than anything in the world. As Alex wrestled with his growing guilt, Emma silently carried the weight of their financial struggles. Her life had shifted drastically from the carefree days of their courtship to a world of careful budgeting and quiet sacrifices. Yet she bore it all with grace and an unwavering determination to make their relationship work. Emma's days were long and arduous. She had taken on extra shifts at the local bakery, arriving before dawn to prepare pastries and brew coffee for the early morning crowd. The work was physically demanding, and the pay was modest, but it was steady. Every paycheck was a small victory, a step toward keeping their life together afloat. In her free time, Emma meticulously planned their expenses. She clipped coupons, compared prices at different stores, and even learned how to mend their clothes instead of buying new ones. Her creativity turned simple meals into something special, making their modest dinners feel like feasts. She never complained about the sacrifices she made, always focusing on what they had rather than what they lacked. One evening, as Emma sat at the kitchen table balancing their budget, Alex walked in from work. He noticed the tired slump of her shoulders, the dark circles under her eyes. "You've been at this all day," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Why don't you take a break?" Emma looked up at him and smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine. I just want to make sure everything's in order." Alex frowned, guilt gnawing at him. "You don't have to do all this alone, Emma." She shook her head. "We're in this together, Alex. If I don't do it, who will?" Later that night, Emma sat in bed with a notebook, jotting down ideas for side gigs she could take on to bring in more income. Her dreams of pursuing her passion for art felt distant, buried beneath the practicalities of survival. The sketchpad she once carried everywhere now gathered dust on a shelf, a silent reminder of the sacrifices she had made. Yet Emma never voiced her frustrations or let Alex see the extent of her struggles. She believed in him and their life together, and that belief was enough to keep her going. To her, love wasn't about grand gestures or lavish gifts. It was about standing by each other through the hardest times, about choosing to stay when it would be easier to walk away. One afternoon, Emma's sister, Laura, visited their small apartment. As they sat on the couch drinking tea, Laura couldn't help but voice her concerns. "Emma, you're working so hard. You've given up so much. Are you sure Alex is worth all this?" Emma's eyes flashed with determination. "He's worth everything, Laura. I love him, and I know he's doing his best. We'll get through this." "But what about your dreams?" Laura pressed. "What about the life you wanted for yourself?" Emma hesitated, her gaze dropping to her hands. "Dreams can wait. Right now, this is what matters." As Laura left, Emma felt a pang of doubt, but she quickly brushed it aside. Her love for Alex was stronger than any hardship. She was willing to wait, to sacrifice, to build a future with him, no matter how uncertain it seemed. That evening, Alex found Emma staring out the window, her expression distant. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, wrapping an arm around her. She leaned into him, her voice soft. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am to have you." Alex's heart clenched. Lucky? He didn't feel deserving of her love, not while he kept the truth from her. He kissed her forehead, silently vowing to end the charade soon. Emma's silent sacrifices deserved to be met with the truth, and he owed her that much, and more. The weight of Alex's deception grew heavier with each passing day. Emma's unwavering love and sacrifices, her constant reassurance in the face of their struggles, only deepened his guilt. He had set out to test her love, to see if it could withstand the illusion of hardship. But the reality of her devotion was far more than he had anticipated. Now every lie felt like a betrayal of the woman who had given him everything. It was during a quiet evening that Alex finally reached his breaking point. Emma had returned home from another exhausting day at work. She had stopped by the local thrift store to pick up a few items for their apartment, a set of curtains and a small lamp to brighten their otherwise dim living space. As she held the items up for Alex to see, her eyes sparkled with pride. "They were on sale," she said. "I thought they'd make the place feel a bit more like home." Alex nodded, forcing a smile. He couldn't bear to meet her gaze for long, afraid she would see the truth in his eyes. Every thoughtful gesture, every sacrifice she made, was a testament to her character. It underscored just how much she loved him, and it made his deception all the more unbearable. That night, as they sat on the couch with cups of tea, Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "We've been through a lot, haven't we?" she murmured. Alex stiffened but quickly relaxed, placing a hand over hers. "Yeah, we have. But I know we'll get through it," she continued, "because we have each other. That's all that really matters." Her words were a dagger to his conscience. Alex knew he couldn't keep the truth from her any longer. She deserved to know, even if it meant risking everything. The next day, Alex decided to set the stage for his confession. He wanted to explain himself in a way that would show Emma how deeply he regretted his actions. He cleared their small dining table, arranging it with candles and a simple dinner he had cooked himself, a rare occurrence as Emma usually handled their meals. He wanted the setting to reflect the sincerity of his intentions. When Emma walked through the door, her face lit up with surprise. "What's all this?" she asked, setting down her bag. "I wanted to do something special for you," Alex said, pulling out a chair for her. "You've done so much for us. It's time I returned the favor." Emma smiled, though a hint of suspicion lingered in her expression. "You're up to something," she teased, taking her seat. As they ate, Alex struggled to find the right words. He watched her laugh at his attempts at humor, her face glowing in the candlelight. How could he risk losing this? But he knew the longer he waited, the worse it would be. "Emma," he said finally, setting down his fork. His tone was serious enough to make her pause mid-bite. "What is it?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "There's something I need to tell you." He took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Emma's eyes softened with concern. "Alex, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" "It's about everything," he said, his voice trembling. "About our life, the struggles we've been through. It's not what it seems." Emma set her fork down slowly, her gaze steady on his. "What do you mean?" Alex hesitated, the words caught in his throat. But then he forced himself to continue. "I'm not struggling financially. I never was. Emma, I'm a millionaire. I've been hiding it from you." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stared at him, her expression unreadable. Alex searched her face for a reaction, anger, betrayal, anything. But she simply sat there, processing his words. "You're what?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm wealthy," Alex admitted, his voice filled with regret. "I hid it from you because I wanted to know if you loved me for who I am, not for my money. But I never expected you to give up so much, to work so hard." Emma stood slowly, pushing her chair back. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the table. "So, all of this, everything we've been through, it was a test?" Alex stood as well, reaching out to her. "Emma, please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't realize how much you would give, how much you would sacrifice." Emma stepped back, her eyes welling with tears. "You didn't realize? Alex, do you have any idea what it's been like? The sleepless nights, the worry, the constant pressure to make ends meet. And all this time you had the power to change it." Alex's heart shattered at the pain in her voice. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting myself, but I hurt you instead." Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I loved you, Alex. Not for your money, not for what you could give me, but for who I thought you were. But now I don't even know who that is." She turned and walked away, leaving Alex standing in the dimly lit room, the weight of his confession crashing down on him. He had revealed the truth, but at what cost? Emma's love had passed his test, but he had failed hers. And as he watched her leave, he realized he might have lost the one thing money could never buy. Emma left the apartment that night, her footsteps echoing down the hallway as Alex stood frozen. The door's soft click was deafening in the silence that followed. He sank into the chair Emma had just vacated, staring blankly at the flickering candlelight. The weight of his actions settled over him, heavier than he ever imagined. He had wanted the truth, but the cost of his discovery was far greater than he had prepared to pay. Emma, meanwhile, wandered aimlessly through the city streets. The cold night air stung her cheeks, but it was nothing compared to the turmoil inside her. Her mind raced, replaying Alex's confession over and over. How could he do this? How could he watch her struggle, sacrifice, and work tirelessly while knowing it was all unnecessary? The betrayal cut deeper than any financial deception. He had betrayed her trust, her belief in their shared struggle, and the foundation of their relationship. As she walked, memories of their time together flooded her mind. The laughter they had shared over burnt dinners, the late-night talks about their dreams, the times they held each other close, vowing to face life's challenges together. It all felt tainted now. She had loved Alex for his honesty, his simplicity, and his apparent willingness to weather the storm with her. But now, she questioned if any of it was real. Emma eventually found herself at a small park, its benches slick with dew. She sat down, wrapping her arms around herself for warmth. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she hesitated before pulling it out. It was Alex. She stared at the screen, his name glowing in the darkness. Part of her wanted to answer, to hear his voice and let him explain further. But another part, the part that was hurt and angry, couldn't bear it. She silenced the call and shoved the phone back into her pocket. Back at the apartment, Alex paced the floor, his mind racing. He had poured his heart out, taken the leap to reveal the truth, and yet it had all gone so wrong. He couldn't blame Emma for her reaction. In hindsight, how could he have expected anything else? But he also couldn't let her walk away without trying to make things right. Over the next few days, Alex tried reaching out to Emma. He sent her texts, apologizing and explaining his intentions, but they went unanswered. He called her phone repeatedly, leaving voicemails filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness. Still, there was no response. Emma had retreated to her friend Sarah's apartment, seeking solace and clarity. Sarah, who had always been Emma's confidant, listened patiently as Emma poured out her heart, detailing Alex's confession and the whirlwind of emotions it had unleashed. "I just don't understand," Emma said, her voice trembling. "Why would he do this? Wasn't our love enough?" Sarah placed a comforting hand on Emma's. "It's not about you, Emma. It sounds like Alex has some deep insecurities he needs to work through, but that doesn't mean what he did is okay. You have every right to feel hurt." Emma nodded, grateful for Sarah's support, but still conflicted. She loved Alex. That much hadn't changed. But love alone couldn't erase the pain of his betrayal. She needed time to figure out if she could forgive him and, more importantly, if she could trust him again. Alex, meanwhile, threw himself into his work and philanthropy, hoping to distract himself from the growing void Emma's absence left. He donated generously to local charities, hoping to atone for his guilt, but it was never enough. The joy he once found in his wealth and achievements now felt hollow without Emma by his side. One evening, Alex sat in his office staring at a photo of him and Emma from their early days together. It was a candid shot, taken during a hike. They were both smiling, covered in mud after slipping during the trek. It had been a moment of pure joy, untainted by deception or doubt. Looking at it now, Alex felt a pang of longing so intense it was almost physical. "I need to fix this," he murmured to himself. But how? How could he prove to Emma that his love was genuine, that he had made a terrible mistake but was willing to do whatever it took to make amends? The answer came to him suddenly, like a spark of clarity. He needed to show Emma, not just tell her. Actions, after all, spoke louder than words. With renewed determination, Alex began to plan. It wasn't just about winning Emma back. It was about earning her trust and proving that she was worth more than all the wealth in the world. Weeks passed since Emma had walked out of Alex's apartment. Each day felt like a test of endurance for both of them, Emma trying to heal her broken heart, and Alex grappling with the emptiness left behind. But while Emma wrestled with her emotions in quiet solitude, Alex was working tirelessly to mend the damage he had caused. Alex started by reaching out to people who knew Emma best, her family and friends. He knew he had to tread carefully. Any grand gesture might seem insincere or manipulative. Instead, he sought their advice, genuinely wanting to understand how he could prove himself to her. Emma's friend Sarah, initially wary of Alex, agreed to meet him for coffee after persistent but respectful requests. "You know, Alex," she began, "Emma's not someone who's impressed by money or gestures. What matters to her is honesty and effort. If you want to win her back, you need to show her that you're the man she fell in love with, the man she thought you were." Her words stayed with Alex. He realized that no amount of wealth or elaborate plans would matter if Emma couldn't trust him again. He needed to rebuild that trust brick by brick, starting with honesty and vulnerability. His first step was simple yet deeply personal. He wrote Emma a letter, handwritten, not typed, laying bare his thoughts, fears, and regrets. He explained why he had hidden his wealth, how his insecurities had driven him to test her love, and how much he regretted the pain he had caused her. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he wrote, "but I hope you'll believe that my love for you was never a lie. You saw me at my lowest, and you loved me anyway. That's something money can't buy, and it's something I'll treasure forever." Emma received the letter on a rainy Tuesday evening. At first, she hesitated to open it, fearing more hurt, but curiosity won, and as she read Alex's words, tears blurred her vision. His sincerity was evident in every line, and though the pain of his actions still lingered, his remorse touched her deeply. Alex didn't stop there. He began volunteering at the community center Emma cared about so much, not to impress her but to genuinely connect with the part of her world he had admired from the beginning. He spent hours helping underprivileged children with their homework, painting walls, and organizing food drives. The work grounded him, reminding him of what truly mattered. Word of Alex's efforts eventually reached Emma. One evening, as she was leaving the center after a late shift, she saw Alex in the distance, crouched next to a little boy, helping him tie his shoelaces. For a moment, she just watched, her heart conflicted. This was the Alex she had fallen for, the man who cared deeply, who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty for a good cause. But could she trust that this change was real and not just a ploy to win her back? Their paths finally crossed when Emma approached him a week later. "Alex," she said softly, startling him from his task of stacking chairs in the center's multi-purpose room. He turned, his expression a mix of surprise and cautious hope. "Emma," he breathed, standing up, "I didn't expect to see you here." "I heard you've been helping out," she said, her tone neutral. "What's this all about?" Alex hesitated, then decided to tell the truth. "It started because of you. I wanted to understand your world better, to be a part of it. But now, it's more than that. These people, this work, it's taught me so much about what I was missing. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Emma, but I wanted to show you that I'm trying to be better, not just for you, but for myself." Emma studied him for a long moment. "People don't change overnight, Alex." "I know," he replied earnestly. "That's why I'm not asking for anything now. I hope someday you'll see that I'm more than the man who made that terrible mistake." Their conversation ended there, but it planted a seed of possibility. Emma continued to observe Alex from a distance, noting his consistency and dedication. He wasn't just showing up for her. He was showing up because he had truly changed. Several weeks later, during a fundraiser at the center, Alex approached Emma again. This time, his demeanor was calm but determined. "Emma, I know I broke your heart. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway because I can't imagine a life without you in it." Emma looked at him, her eyes filled with both pain and hope. "Alex, I can't just forget what happened. Trust doesn't rebuild itself overnight." "I don't expect it to," he said. "I'll wait as long as it takes. I'll prove to you every day that I'm the man you thought I was, the man I want to be." For the first time in months, Emma allowed herself a small smile. "We'll see, Alex. One step at a time." Over the following months, Alex and Emma began to rebuild their relationship, piece by piece. They started with small, casual meetings, letting their connection grow naturally. Alex made no grand gestures, focusing instead on showing Emma his unwavering commitment, and Emma, though cautious, began to see that his change was genuine. By the time they stood together again at the community center's annual gala, hand in hand, their love had become something new, something forged in adversity, and stronger for it. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for both Alex and Emma, that was more than enough. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of love, redemption, and unforgettable life lessons.